So in Left 4 Dead, there was a point where the hunter just really sucked. It really, really, really sucked. This is right pre-release. We're working on it. But it's a really good example of how using some really simple ideas can keep you clarity on your design and get it to be fun and get it to work. Fun is the thing we're not worried about yet. But one of the things is just always making sure that you understand the difference between goals and tools, and understanding that the hunter is just a tool in the bigger scheme of things, because we need something in Left 4 Dead that will end cap a player. We need a way that the people can't just lone gun it, right? So if you're running off on your own, you may pay the price, and a hunter finds you, and he's going to be able to take you down, and you're going to die because nobody's going to come there. And in fact, he purposely does a lot of damage quickly to you as he's sitting on top of you, depending on your skill level that you're playing at. But that's the idea. That's the idea that he exists in. And now remember, you can cause people to stick together in a whole bunch of different ways. You can do it through making them every 50 feet stand together and be scanned, and like stand in circles together. And there's some interesting ways people have done this, but for us, we're making a horror game. And one of the things is fear, and fear of something that if you go off on your own is going to kill you is a pretty good fear. And so we want to live inside of that space. So that's the hunter. But now where it really sucked was you had to stand still, stand like in the darkness, and then have people come up and like get close enough to almost touch you, and then you could pounce on them. And it was the idea of having this fear of walking in the dark and walking by yourself. Valid. Try it. We try it. It's not fun. Because now, if you remember, as earlier video I made, the original Left 4 Dead isn't co-op started. It started as versus. So that means somebody's playing the hunter, and the person's playing the hunter is like, oh, no, I'm just standing in the dark, and I'm just waiting. Oh, now they walk by me. They didn't even come over here. Oh, this sucks. This sucks, right? And this is a great example. Someone asked, while we're playing the Anacrusis, about procedural maps in versus kind of games and why it doesn't work. I can make a video on that. But in this case, it would just suck a lot of times. So we made it fun. Because inside of the goal of being able to end cap, we now have the goal, since it's playable, that people need to want to play it, right? One of the goals is that everyone should want to play every single special. And I would argue, for me, the smoker is the least interesting, because you just have so little to do, and it's so really depends on the area. But still, I have fun doing it. But it's the one that at the end of the day you always have to have favorites, and for me, the hunter really is the favorite. But so we had that goal of like, okay, it's got to be able to end cap. It's got to be able to be something that you want to play. And then I think you have to give credit to Michael Booth of a lot of design. When people talk about Turtle Rock, they try to talk about it kind of monolithically, but there's Turtle Rock with Michael Booth and there's Turtle Rock without Michael Booth. And this is Turtle Rock with Michael Booth. Michael Booth is now over at, I haven't caught up with him in a while, I gotta catch up with him, over at Bad Robot. So I'm super interested to see what they make. But he was iterating really quickly on this and came up with the idea of the wall pounces and everything. But then we went too far, because it's a balance, because we want them to end cap, which means people have to come over and rescue them, but we don't want you to get killed. So originally, damage was, and it still does this, right? The higher you jump from, the more damage you do, but it caps at 25. At one point, we removed that cap. And so as the hunter, you were just finding the highest spaces in the map to leap from, right? And you were just, boom, taking somebody dead out instantly. And you could kill them, you could end cap them. It was crazy. And I remember actually Chris Ashton, who's the CEO of Turtle Rock, was just screaming one day. He had gotten end capped, where it was just random from his point of view. He had no idea. He just was walking out of the safe room, and one of us figured out where we could get up really high and do this really great kind of arcing leap, right? Where you're going over a bunch of stuff, no way anybody can see you, and then bam, hits him, and killed him instantly. And I think he just quit the game, because there's an argument that was that heated, right? So it was fair. I'm not knocking Chris on that, but it was just funny because that's how far the pendulum could swing the other way. And so we're all cackling, because I remember I was on the zombie side, and we were all just laughing, and to us it was the funniest, greatest thing ever. But of course, then when it was our turn to have that happen to us, it wasn't. And so that's how playtesting really helps, right? Because you're playtesting all of this, and it's just are the people wanting to play those characters? How are the survivors reacting to those characters, and it's that balance of getting it to go where you both fear it, but it's not unfair that I can't just instantly destroy you. And I think we did a good job with the hunter. And I think that's a kind of the balance that you want to have. Because it's funny, because for the Anacrusis, half price sale right now on Steam Summer Sale. And link in the bio. The Gooper does a lot of this, but the Gooper added something we don't have with the hunter is right. The hunter is you're attached to the person, and think about it. The smoker, you're attached to the person, so you can't kill the rescuer, right? And so that weakens those creatures a little bit because they can always get killed and knocked off. So the Gooper in the Anacrusis, we made it where it doesn't get attached. It can goop somebody and take care of them, and then you can set up to do a bomb on the person coming to rescue. And so then you have to be cognizant of that, and you have to watch for that, right? And that's where players now have this fear of this Gooper jumping in, because you can do a little dance and the dance explodes. And especially if there's fire nearby, you're going to just make the whole area on fire. You're not going to be able to rescue the character. And so what we do with that is we minimize what happens to the down character and the fire damage so that you are able to recover from that. But also, it adds this tension where you don't even want to just go single to the Gooper to cover them, which was so funny because what we saw was people who were used to Left 4 Dead would tell me what they're doing and how they're being so smart and they're going off in twos. And I'm like, no. One of the problems that aggravated us in Left 4 Dead where people were breaking off into twos, we want them to stay together as a whole of four. In the Anacrusis, by far the team does better if they stay together as a whole of four versus splitting up in twos. Maybe we should just let people break off in twos because that's what they like better. I don't know. But what we saw was that happening, and that was a counter to that. And that's one of the reasons why. There's a lot of things in the Anacrusis you can deal with in fours way quicker than you can in twos. There's always that thing of the hard thing of when you are designing something that is comparable to something else and knowing people have that in their head of how do you play with that and how can you play with that kind of expectations and subvert them, or does it need to still stay the same because then it feels frustrating? It's funny now, we played co-op last night, but like we play enough that we now are in this world more than we are in Left 4 Dead. And in fact, some of the people I think are going to play some Left 4 Dead versus because we forget how some of those mechanics work and how those behave compared to the chaos that is the Anacrusis, where the chaos is really heightened. Yeah. And if you ever want to play versus in Anacrusis or in Left 4 Dead, stop by the Discord, discord.gg/StrayBombay, because we play all the time. We play both games all the time. In fact, there's a group going back and playing a bunch of Back 4 Blood right now. It's just not for my game. I am fine. There are people on our Discord who will never play my game, and that is fine. It wasn't for them, right? That's how it works. It's cool. But yeah, so think about those kind of things with design. With the hunter in particular here is making sure your goals are clear. And I bring up the Anacrusis part with the Gooper because that's our goal of keeping the four together. And I think people maybe are used to splitting up. And I see a lot more now of co-op games where people can really lone gun it a lot more. And it's that breakdown of it. To take it all the way and really ramble, this is a problem why I like Battlefield 5, but not the newer one. And I'm really worried about the latest one because you don't have to be in squads anymore. And I thought this powerful, the squad, because if you ever get people, like especially on tank heavy maps, like Iwo Jima or something, where you have 2 assault, 1 healer, and 1 support, you win. You own the map because you can work together to take care of everything with the 2 fighting, one reviving them, the other making sure they have ammo and can keep going, and the tanks just can't handle that. It's too much for them. And that working together is just beautiful, but it's also just not how people play anymore. And so we lose some of that, and that bums me out. Old man.